Hi, my name is Brett Linkletter, CEO and founder of Misfit Media, the best damn restaurant marketing agency on the planet. Here at Misfit, we help restaurant owners grow and scale their business through strategic online marketing practices. Right now, you're listening to our podcast, Restaurant Misfits, where we'll discuss all things related to restaurant marketing, management, and everything else in between growing a restaurant business. This podcast is also brought to you in collaboration with Total Food Service. For over 30 years, Total Food Service has provided the restaurant and food service industry with exclusive interviews to the latest news on products, trends, associations, and events. You can sign up for a free monthly subscription by visiting totalfood.com today. And from all the misfits over here, we hope you enjoy the show. Cheers. In this episode of Restaurant Misfits, I interview Peter Demas, who's the CEO and president of Demas Brands. Peter is a fourth-generation restaurateur. He's been in the restaurant business pretty much his entire life since he was 12 years old. He loves this industry. He loves every aspect of it, from really what he does as a restaurateur, helping people, all the way to how he's also helping his employees and instilling values in them. He believes that the restaurant business is one of the best industries in which you really can help people. He actually had a law degree and was going to pursue a career as an attorney and turned back to the restaurant space because he really just loved what it was about and how he, again, could help people. We had a fantastic conversation from what he's done as a brand to stay afloat during the COVID pandemic to a variety of other topics, including his morning routines and how he believes that helps him stay successful. And if you listen to any of my other podcasts in the past, what you'll know is I also love morning routines. So we talked a lot about this quite a bit. And so if you're looking to learn something new today, if you're looking to get a jump start in your business and you're looking to really instill some values in your team, I think you're going to love this episode. So let's dive right in. Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's been insanely hot here in LA. It just got really cold all of a sudden this day, which is weird. Everyone's freaking out. But other than that, everything's good. Everything's good. So, Peter, you're the president and CEO of Demas Brands. It's a family business, right? You guys have had for a while.
Yeah, so my father started it in this particular. I'm actually a fourth generation restaurant operator, but my father started a restaurant called Demas's Restaurant, or it's actually called Demas's Steak and Spaghetti House. Later we changed it to Demas's Restaurant, and back in 1989, and then he sold the restaurant to me and my sister in 2009, and then I've been operating it actually since 2001. And then we started another restaurant chain called PDK Southern Kitchen and Pantry, and so we have both of those units. We got 3 stores of one and then 2 of the other that we're operating. We're about to open up our third PDK sometime later this year.
Amazing. And so for everyone who's just learning about you for the first time in your brands here, can you just give us a quick intro on really? I mean, obviously a fourth generation restaurateur in the business, but tell me how you got going in this business.
Yeah, so the way I got going was when I was 12 years old. My father had a Western Sizzlin franchise, and that's what brought him to the Nashville, Tennessee area. And so he was a franchisee. And when I was 12 years old, I started washing dishes, and then just kind of worked my way through various things, whether it was frying, grilling, just doing whatever I could, and just kind of worked my way throughout all of those areas. And then I went to college and at University of Memphis. At that time, it was Memphis State, and he and my mother started Demas's while I was gone. And then I found out in college that girls and credit cards were not a good combination, and ended up just horribly in debt. Ran home, basically had to come back, and then I went to school here locally at Middle Tennessee State University until I can kind of get my life kind of back together for a bit. And so I started working at the restaurant there, and eventually started managing, and then became a general manager, and then left to go to law school, became a lawyer. And one day I was sitting there saying, I don't know if I want to do this. Like when I was working in restaurants, I felt like I was helping people more than I did as an attorney. And so I keep my license up to date, but I chose to come back into the restaurant field. And then that's how we took over from there.
Awesome. So you were saying, you said you felt like you were helping people more working as a restaurateur than.
Yeah, because so I went into law because I read about these these great civil rights lawyers and these and these wonderful cases, and it's absolutely true. So there's some amazing lawyers out there that do a lot of amazing things. The
Yeah.
problem was that's only a small section of what they do, and I'm not a paperwork kind of guy. I will. And so I'm sitting there doing paperwork, and I was working actually in the restaurant part-time while I was practicing law. And I was listening to these lawyers have a conversation in the office next to mine. And I
Yep.
thought, I don't want to have that conversation in 20 years. And it wasn't anything big. It was actually so minor that I can't even remember what it was. But I just remember thinking, I don't want that to be my life. And that's when I decided. So I called my father up. What I didn't know was my father at that time was actually looking to sell the restaurant to somebody because he was getting to the age where he physically couldn't do it. So he was overwhelmed and excited. And again, I came back and then it was a matter of telling my brand new fiance that, hey, you're not marrying a lawyer anymore. You're marrying somebody who washes pots and pans for a living. So,
And how did she take that?
well, she actually at first did not take it very well because I met her in the restaurant. She actually worked for my
Got it.
parents.
Oh, really? Okay.
And yeah, and the funny thing was when I was in law school in Kansas City, my mother called me and said, "Hey, I found the girl I want you to marry." And I'm like, "You understand? Like, I'm not going to be anywhere near there. I probably will never meet her. All that other stuff." And I kind of laughed at her. She also told her the exact same thing. Well, when I came back, funny thing was, is we met, we were dating, we were engaged within 3.5 months after we met, and we were
Wow.
married less than a year after we met.
No
And
way. Wow.
yeah, so we've been married 22 years now. But yeah, but for her, it was, she grew up in her family was in construction, and they kind of worked together, and there was a whole lot of fighting, et cetera. So she was very nervous about being in the family business type stuff. And
Got it.
but we've she's now part of the family business. She actually is our director of brand marketing, brand
Wow.
management, I'm sorry. And she's an invaluable, and she's completely invaluable to me. It's just so
Got
because
it.
I'm very direct, and she's very not. So I'll say stuff, and she's like, "Hey, you might want to soften that a little bit."
100%.
So
And by the way, I apologize. So it's pronounced Demas, right? Not demos.
that's correct.
Demas.
It's Demas, but
Demas.
yeah,
Okay.
don't worry.
My apologies.
Oh, don't no worries at all. I've had people call, and they get in arguments, and they will call me. Like, I had a guy put cable into our house, and he called me later that day. Said he and his wife were arguing about how to pronounce the name of the restaurant. We
Oh
don't
my
care,
God.
as long as you show up or buy from us. You can call us whatever you want to call us. We don't really care. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, obviously running multiple restaurant locations can be a lot, right? I mean, look, here at Misfit Media, our agency, we service hundreds of restaurants, and we've seen, God, so many just take on such a heavy toll because of COVID, right? Has
right.
COVID affected you guys in
Oh
a
yeah.
very kind of crazy way, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I was yeah, every morning I have a routine. Every morning I get up, I read my Bible, and I journal, and I kind of and so
Yep.
it's funny because when I was looking back at my journal part of it, I started off by saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. There's this kind of odd thing coming out from China. It might impact us some. I'm not really
Yep.
quite sure." And then I fell for the 2 weeks, dialogue as well. And I talked with our general managers. It was on a Thursday, and I talked with my general managers, and I told them, I said, "Hey, this is going to be impacting us, but it'll probably be a couple months. Don't worry about it." On Saturday, I wrote in my journal, "This is coming faster than I thought. Well, you need to hang on. It's about to be a bumpy ride." And then by Tuesday, we had to lay off all of our servers. The dining rooms were closed. Our governor and president were saying, "Don't eat inside restaurants." I mean, it
Yep.
was all of that stuff was happening at that moment. And it was just, it came with such force and such and I mean, you just didn't really know, and everything was changing. The science was changing, the rules were changing, everything was changing on such a frequent basis that it just
Yeah.
happened to. That was the struggle of it. But I even called a bankruptcy attorney and said, "Look, I don't know if we're going to make it, so I want to be prepared on this. I
Totally.
want to do the right thing, and be prepared from it." So I literally go from top of the world to paying off all debt and current liabilities are hundreds of thousands of dollars behind,
Yeah.
trying to kind of work that out, and just, but God's faithfulness kind of got us through it, and we got to kind of see it at the end of the year. We actually ended up cash flow positive at the end of the year by now.
Love it.
I'm like nonprofit level, but
Yeah. Hey,
I
but you
just don't
guys
have
are
my
here.
501c3.
I mean, okay, here's a crazy stat. So
All right.
beginning of COVID, we had just over 120 restaurant concepts that we were working with um, across all of North America, and actually a few in like the UK area. By the end of April, I believe we had dropped down to 60.
Oh my goodness.
So our business took a heavy hit, right? I would say of those 60 concepts that we were working with, I would say 30-40% they went out of business completely. So it's sad, it's awful, and it's been tough. You're based in Tennessee, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's funny. I was in Nashville for a bachelor's party the last week of March when all this news came out.
Oh yeah.
And obviously, Nashville. I mean, it's such a great, fun place to be. And it went from, one night having a great bachelor's party to everyone was just terrified. What's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was so much unknown at the time, right? I was like, am I going to be stuck here? I'm glad I have my computer. Like, I had no idea what was going to happen. I was getting calls from clients and close family and friends saying, they know I'm in the restaurant business. Are you guys gonna be okay? I'm like, oh, I think, yeah. Like, what is this? This sounds stupid. But little did we know what was about to happen on the other side, right?
Right.
So, so how many locations in total do you guys have at this point?
Well, at this point, we have 5 total locations, with one that the shell is being built, and so we'll be going in there. I've actually literally just signed just set up a meeting with our equipment people to kind of start with that process. So right now we have
Nice.
5, about to have 6. Before COVID, we had 6, but we had one of our locations that was in downtown Nashville, and that lease was ending when COVID hit. We still had a little bit of time left on it.
Got
And
it.
we were already looking at moving because the rental rates in Nashville were tripling. And so we were already
Wow.
looking at moving anyway when that took place. And so with COVID happening, things getting shut down, and then the landlord wasn't very cooperative with us. And so we ended up just go ahead and killing that lease a little early.
Got it.
Which ended
Wow.
up because then shortly, and then Christmas time, we had the Christmas bombing, and that made the building that we were in uninhabitable anyway. So we were
Wow.
one block away from that bomb. So if you walked out our front door, you hit the AT&T building that blew up
Oh
from
my
that Christmas Day
God.
bombing. So yeah, I mean, and that was my first place I was a general manager. So like when it went off, that was an extremely upsetting time for me, because that's kind of the area I kind of grew up in. So I was walking around, I could walk around Nashville, and I'm seeing on the news, the places that I would hang out and do, that was, just gone, like just a hole.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Wow. That's nuts. Peter, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you have like a very specific morning routine. You wake up, you read the Bible, you write in a journal. Can you kind of elaborate on your morning routine a little bit? Because I personally, I think morning routines are such a key to our success as a business. I recommend all our employees do it as well. I love journaling as well. I'm very big on a specific routine right when you wake up. Tell me about your routine, because I think that does play a big part in it. I'm really curious what you do
Yeah. So,
specifically.
it was interesting. So I found Christ about 7 years ago. Or gosh, longer than that now, because 2020 has killed all your time reference to anything anymore. But anyway,
Yeah.
but before that, I would wake up, kind of play on my phone, and I would go work out, and then kind of start my day. But then afterward, I realized there was more important times to kind of clear my head as well. So I really, what I wake up is I just kind of I do kind of look at my phone a little bit, just to kind of get my eyes focused for 5-10 minutes. I grab coffee. I sit down at the table. I read my Bible, do a Bible study. I kind of read. I pray, and I journal, and kind of do all that during that time. And then that's when I get up and I shower and kind of do that stuff, and then I'll head into work. And so it kind of depends. Then if I'm hitting at the office part, then what I'll do is I come in and I'll look at the reports, and look at different things to kind of know what I need to look at to talk with our director of operations about. handle it from that side. If I'm going into the restaurant side, then I go in. I generally kind of know what I'm looking for because I looked at those reports. So I go in and I hit those areas first. And I start, so, our manager's like, how did he catch that? Well, it's because I already knew what I was looking for before I walked in, and then what I'm basically doing is just kind of setting that up and, kind of going in and then talking with people. And, it's amazing. Your employees will tell you more about how to fix problems than anybody else will. You kind of go, I have this rule that you kind of go 5 geographic feet from a problem. So if we have an issue with carry out, and we're, like obviously our carry out blew up because of COVID. And, we had our Cokes line wasn't prepared for that much extra volume of go boxes. And our cashier stand that was handling carry out wasn't prepared for that volume either. So what I would do is I would make certain to have conversations with those cooks and get their ideas and get their suggestions. And sometimes they're awesome. Sometimes they're really dumb, but I do the same thing. Sometimes I have awesome ideas and sometimes I think I have awesome ideas and they really don't work out. So that's kind of how that's kind of part of that beginning part of the routine. And then as in this industry, things change and happen so frequently, you just kind of have to kind of go from there and plan it that way.
100%. No, I think that's really cool though that you do that. I mean, like, so for me, I have a very similar routine, I guess, in some ways, right? So I wake up, I like to do a little bit of reading. It could be anything. It could be just reading for pleasure. It could be, some book on marketing, sales, whatever, business strategies. I just like to read something in the morning. I like to do some kind of like meditation where I get my mind right. And then I like to really start my day and journal. I love journaling, by the way. Do you have a specific routine you follow with your journal, or is it just kind of whatever's on your mind or anything specific?
Yeah, so I actually start off with just a few numbers every day. So I start off with the date, the number of days that I've been reading the Bible, the number of days that I've journaled. Because one of the things I find interesting is if I don't write the number of days I journal, I'll fall off. So I tried journaling several times in the past, and it just didn't work. So some days my journal is one line. It's just, just one line. And I'm just kind of, because I want to just kind of get to the next day. Because, I wake up late every now and then, or, I have an earlier meeting than I thought. And, things just kind of change. So sometimes it's just one line. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4 pages, but as long as I do that, it forces me into a habit. And then my next numbers are people that I share the gospel with and memory verses. And then my last number is my weight. Because in this business, I wanted to be low carb, but then we have a problem with bread every single time. And I have to eat, 40 pieces of bread to try to figure out what the problem is. That doesn't work well with a low carb diet,
Yes.
So, and then as far as the journal goes, a lot of it is I might kind of just talk about things that's kind of on my mind that's happening, prayers, and then as I pray, anything that I feel that God's leading me to, that I write down. And then what I will do every now and then is I go back and look at my old journals. And I look at it, and it's amazing to see all the different ways that again, things that were a big deal then that aren't now, or things that was really important that I got to see an answer and a resolution to, and that's been so good and helpful. And going back and kind of looking at those journals, and I also recognize that my kids will probably want my journals one day,
for
so
sure,
for them to have a better understanding of who I am and know that I wasn't dad. Like I had like feelings and emotions and, and all of that stuff. They need to know that.
I love that.
Is, at teenagers, I got to be dad because I can't show any weakness.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. I like this a lot. And the thing is, the reason I'm spending so much time on the journal thing is I personally have gotten such a big benefit from it. And I recommend it to all of our employees. I recommend it to anyone that I'm consulting in business. And it seems like people just don't want to adopt it. They get lazy about it. They don't see the value, but it's one of those things where I'm glad that it's such a big thing for you. It's such a big thing for me. And again, I think it's something that, for me, at least, what it does is it helps tie my thoughts across time. It helps me see things clearly. Like you said, you can refer back to it and see kind of what you were thinking at the time. You almost can kind of reminisce on that moment.
Right.
And as you progress and grow as a business leader or a dad or whatever it is, you can kind of see the path you've taken. And I love that. I think that's really cool.
Well, studies have shown that when you write down your goals, you're more likely to achieve them, and you're more likely to achieve them at a higher rate. So I also help coach our soccer team, and we've had for the last 4 years, truthfully, we've had a terrible soccer team. And so this year, actually it started last year, but COVID killed our season. But this year I created goals. Or I didn't create them. I had them, create their own goals, individual and team goals. And then periodically about every couple of weeks, I hand them their goals back out and let them kind of see where they are. And what's amazing is this year our team, we won more district games than we've had in the previous 4 years. We're actually playing well. We're playing together as a team. We're not fighting each other. And I think so much of it is attributed to the fact that they're writing that stuff down. And they because when you put it on paper, because I wrote a book, and it's amazing when you put it on paper. When I speak to groups, you can kind of like, oh man, I misspoke. But on a book, it's on paper. It's on paper. Like you can't do anything about it. And so I think when you write it down, it forces you to commit to it much stronger than if you don't.
Yes, and that I'm so glad you brought that up. So Afraid to Trust, right? That's the title of the book.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to get that too. I think that's amazing, by the way. And so congrats on that, by the way. That's fantastic. And I love what you just said. It's that once you put it in writing, yes, 100%, it's more real and you kind of stick to it. Once you've written a book, it's that times 1,000, I would say, right? It helps. I wrote a book too, actually. It's called Misfit Marketing for Restaurants. And wow, was that tough? And wow, do I referred back to it quite a bit though, like you just mentioned, right?
Right. Yeah.
So tell me about the book. I want to hear more about that. So what is the premise behind it?
So the book. So again, I speak to different groups. I speak to them both on restaurant topics as well as Christian topics. And this book was about it was kind of about my journey and how I found Christ was kind of the first part of it. But then the next section of it was, okay, so we've had a business that was 23 years at the time. And I said, all right, now we're going to be a purpose-driven business as opposed to a, customer seeking, business. And so part of that transition of moving it from purpose, to purpose-driven business. So, and the impact was huge. I mean, I did a survey around that time and our employees said we had a toxic work environment. Well, the last 3 years, we've been named the top workplaces in Middle Tennessee for large businesses, voted by our employees.
Wow.
And so we're the only restaurant that's in the category as well. So, and then the last part is we also opened up another restaurant called Peter D's, and it was a kind of a more of an upscale casual restaurant. And if anything could go wrong, it did. I mean, the construction was off, like the plans were off by feet in both directions.
Wow.
And we had, just everything collapsed. We had long ticket times, bad service, everything would mess up. And it was learning how to handle that fear, those 2 a.m. moments of, my reputation, my money, everything that you normally put security in, like, how do I handle that? And so it's kind of a practical guide through my story to help people kind of get through that. Because truthfully, in all of life, you're either in a crisis, about to be in a crisis, or just finished a crisis. No one is exempt from that. And so we have to learn like how to deal with it without popping pills or just crawling under the bed, even though we may want to do either one of those. It's just not something that's practical or something we ought to be doing.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think talk about crisis. I think especially in the restaurant industry, right? I interviewed someone recently. His name's Ken McGarry, and he's a restaurant consultant, and he's the author of this book about just being a restaurant manager, essentially. And I read just so far the foreword of his book, literally a couple nights ago. And the foreword of his book, I forget the name of the restaurateur that wrote the foreword for him, but the way he described the restaurant space was like being a restaurant manager or being a restaurant owner is like, running a business and, at the drop of a pin, all of a sudden you're getting socked in the face. Randomly. Just at any given moment, you're just going to get hit and you got to expect it. You got to just roll with the punches. And that is the business. You're doing your thing and socked in the face. Cheap shots all the time. And so talk about being in a crisis. I mean, this industry, that's what it's about. That's what it comes down to. But hey, we end up loving it. We love it.
Well, and
You
that's the
know?
thing I didn't even realize, because again, I grew up in it, and law is not a low
Yep.
stress job either. But again, I still work restaurants part time. Again, family's always been around it. And
Yeah.
I'm part of a group called C12, and C12 is a group of Christian business executives and owners that get together, and they're national. Actually, they're now international group,
Yeah.
but there's like 12 of us that they get together in small groups on it. And I'm listening to them talk about their business issues, and I'm kind of like, wow, that's your issue. And they hear mine, and they're like, yeah, we don't have any advice for you. I mean, we've
Yeah.
never experienced that. And I'm like, wait, you get to play golf? Like, when do you have time to play golf? I
I
mean,
know.
but the truth of the matter is the impact that I get to make on our staff and our employees, and the changes we make, because unfortunately so many of our people, that the hourly employees that work for us, it's either they're just starting out or they made some really bad decisions in their life. And so to be able to have that type of positive impact, to teach them discipline, to teach them values, to teach them the stuff that they may not have gotten at home, or that they needed somebody else to kind of reinforce, to me is just it's so worth it. It's just an amazing, it's such amazing opportunities that we have before us. And I think that's the thing that's so incredible about this business. In addition to the fact that our
I love
customers,
that.
it's the exact same thing. People don't eat out because they're hungry. If they wanted that piece of bread and a piece of cheese would satisfy that. I mean, I've made
Yeah.
many meals that way, but they
Yeah.
come out because they're there for the experience of it. And we're offering them so much more than just to satisfy the hunger. And so,
Totally.
you have a bad day, you go there, you hate your job, you're looking forward to eating out. I mean, there's all of this stuff that happens surrounding restaurants.
I
And it's
love that.
the just amazing industry and just amazing people that we get to interact with, and crazies too. That's the other
Yeah.
fun part about it.
No, but I think what you just said, I think that is why, at the core, why a lot of restaurateurs get into this business, because they like to delight people. It's like
Right.
the same thing when you see a chef. Why does any chef become a chef? They like making food so much, and they like seeing people smile even more from eating their food.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
it's about. They like delighting people. They like to see that smile on their face. They like to see that excitement. That is what we're after. We're really entertainers, and we're helping people. Like you just said, someone might come into the day, tough day. They just want a really nice meal. They want to have that experience, and that being able to be that person for them is a great feeling. I've told so many people in business, when they're kind of looking for their calling, what they want to do, I said, look, in any business, if you can find a way to make money, help people, and have fun, that's winning life. I mean,
Right.
wow, that's winning life. That's winning business, right?
And if you don't enjoy helping people, don't go in this business. And there's plenty
Totally.
of us in it. But I mean, because there are awesome cooks out there that don't want to see them smile. They just want to pretend like, look how great I am, because I can make this food tall and taste good, and that's awesome and that's great. But that you're in the wrong business. You
Yeah.
need to be doing something else, because again, it's that purpose. It's why we do what we do. And if we're not doing it, for the right reasons, then you need to find you get a job at the government, run, be a postal service, carrier, but you got to do something else besides something that involves customers, because this job's too hard for you not to enjoy. I mean, it really
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for you, obviously, what I love about what you mentioned a few minutes ago too is you want to be a resource for your employees. It seems like that you want to teach and instill values in them, life values, even not just, hey, do well in the workplace, but other
Right.
values. Is a lot of that influence, part of your Christian faith? Do you?
Yeah, it was. So what happened is when I finally met Christ, I said, okay, I'm turning everything over to you. And when that meant my business too. So one of the things that we did was we brought in a chaplain. So our chaplains are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So
Yeah.
it's not only for that, but also for their families. So they can call, like employees that are in jail. Our chaplains make jail visits, hospital visits. They perform funerals and marriages. And again, just they're there just to help, and everything's confidential. So you can call them and say, look, I got this massive drug problem, I need help. And they'll never tell me, I mean, so we get to provide that opportunity for them in that area. We've done things like we've had a I was noticing that people were walking to and from work, a few years back, and it was, the southern hot days that are really humid, and so we purchased a bunch of bikes from a local bike shop, brand new bikes, and we gave away the bikes to the employees that were there. I mean, I loved it. It could have been cars, but we couldn't afford cars, but we could afford bikes for the people. And so we were able to give them that. But then we also teach them in orientation, and then we have a weekly pre-mill, or we have a daily pre-mill we change once a week. And we talk about our value of the week. So if our value of the week is accountability, we talk about the value of accountability. Or if the value is integrity or humility, and we talk about what that is, because many people don't even know what a value is anymore. They're not taught that. They're taught this is what you do. And it's like a computer. I have to hit enter in order to figure out, not the reason why I hit enter. And then there is the why we do things. And when you know your why, your what becomes more valuable.
Yep. No, I so much agree with you what you just said. I say the exact same thing all the time. You have to know your why, or nothing else makes sense. Literally.
Right.
I mean, at every single level, I say, even in our business too, it's like, hey, we're switching to this new program. Here's every single reason why, how it benefits you as our employee, how it benefits our company and our clients. There's a big why behind everything, because if you have the why, you understand the system and why you're doing it, right? Obviously. I mean,
Right.
At the most basic level. Let's talk about, I want to kind of go back to to fear in general, because it seems like you've really conquered fear. But also I want to talk about that because I think what COVID has done is instilled fear. The media has instilled fear. COVID has instilled fear. I don't want to go too deep into politics and all this kind of stuff.
No, I understand.
But look, I'm in California, and I'm around a lot of people that let's just say I'm not on their side. I can already tell I'm on your side on this kind of stuff. So just to be clear, but there's a lot of fear mongering, it seems like, and so people are tense, people are afraid. What are some kind of strategies you might have for kind of conquering that fear in life or in business in general?
Yeah, so I can tell you, just to kind of give you an idea of the fear and why it's not politicized. And it was not uncommon for during the same day that we would have people that would come in and yell at us because we did close down dining rooms, or we were requiring our employees to wear face masks per the law. And we were yelling at us saying, that you are, that all of this is unconstitutional. And, there would be that side, they'd yell and scream at us. But in reality that was fear too. That was fear of something else that was going on in their lives. They were fear that their rights are going to be trampled. That was that. And then on the other hand, you had people that literally, they would come out, they would put a note up on their window and pop the trunk saying, put the food in the trunk. And, they're having the clothes, wearing 2 masks, driving, so you have the opposite side, and then people wouldn't come out at all. So we're dealing with both sides of fear on it, and we're having to handle both sides of it.
Yeah.
So in reality is what I came to recognize is the opposite of fear is not courage. Courage, because you think Medal of Honor winners, when they get their medal, they'll talk about how scared they were in that moment. Or, police officers, when they're about to go into a big bust into a house, they're afraid, even though they're still being courageous. So that's not the opposite of fear. The opposite of fear is actually trust. So even if you were going to apply it, let's say in a relationship, if I was afraid my wife, if I didn't trust my wife, it was because I'm afraid that she was cheating on me. But because I realized, because I trust my wife, I don't have that fear that I don't have that fear. So, if she is 30 minutes late, I don't have the fear that, oh my goodness, what is she doing? I don't know where she is. I need to put a GPS on her phone. I don't have to worry about that because I trust her. So I don't have that fear. So one of the things that recognize by starting with it. So one of the things we do, and I advise this to teenagers all the way up to senior citizens, is if you write out, and so what we do is we write out everything we're thankful for. And we start out by, and sometimes you can't, because you're just so overwhelmed with fear and worry and anxiety that you just can't do it. So I started out with something simple, like I'm thankful to live in a community that has a grocery store on, almost at every corner. And then from there, if that's still not good enough, I'm thankful that in that grocery store, there's an aisle full of cookies. And then even from there, I got like 20 different types of Oreos. There are places in this world that don't even have an Oreo at all. So I can be thankful for that type of stuff. But once I start that process, then it just starts to flow. I start thanking, God, for my health. And I start thinking, and I get down to the bottom. And then at the end of that, I literally go through and I start praying, praying over it. And I just say, thank you, God, I thank you for this. And I thank you for this. And I say it out loud. Because when you verbalize it, it becomes a lot more real. It's very similar to, so I'm writing it down, I'm verbalizing it, I'm speaking it, and I'm thanking God for these things that He's given me. At that point in time, I write down what I'm afraid of. So I'm afraid our restaurants might close. And then I change that lane and I say, I don't trust that God's going to take care of me, with these restaurants. And then it's kind of like, wow, I'm kind of being ridiculous. You know what? Because if the restaurant closes, that's fine. I'll be somewhere else. I mean, so it's a matter of just kind of trusting. And it's not like I sit back and be like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about it and don't go through it. But it becomes a matter of who do I not trust that's creating this fear? And the fear again isn't sitting in a corner afraid. I was afraid before. I was afraid that people were going to see me as a fraud, that I wasn't a good restaurant person. So I was angry all the time. So my fear manifested in anger, or it could manifest in jealousy, or it could manifest in I just want to sit at home under the covers. But I ultimately figure out, okay, what is it? Who is it that I don't trust? And it could be a person or it could be God that I don't trust. And either way, that's how I play with it and go from there. So it's not a matter that I conquer it. It's a matter of when fear comes over, I learn how to adapt to it and how to really phrase it in a way that I can address it head on.
I love that. Wow, that is going to be a highlight of this episode for sure. That is amazing. I love that. No, but thank you for that though, because again, it is, I would say probably the last 15 episodes of our podcast have been a big part of people are scared. People are scared right now, and I'm hopeful that things are going to be clearing up real soon for us here in the States, at least. Knock on wood. Let's pray that's the case, but. I think whatever the case, whether COVID or not, there is always fear around. Fear, like you said, being the CEO of a new business, starting a new company, diving into a new relationship, whatever the case, there's always fear right there in front of us. And so learning how to address that, I think this is absolutely huge. Going back, I know this is the last time I'll do it, but going back to the journal, the one thing I just want to tell you what I do, and I want to hear your thoughts. I write down 5 things in my journal. I write down 2 things I was thankful for from the day before, practicing gratitude. 2 things that I will do that day. And then, one goal of mine that I'm looking to accomplish, like more of like a long-term thing. And I find just, doing that every day, you get your stuff done. And also practicing gratitude, right? Practicing gratitude of just being thankful. Like, I'm thankful that I'm still in business. I'm thankful for my position as a CEO of this company. I'm thankful for all these things that I do. Thankful for my friends and our team and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's something too, where people got to be more thankful right now. Everyone's, I feel like, pointing fingers at the government or this or that or whatever. Yes. It's like, we have so much to be thankful for. Like, come on.
Yeah, I agree completely. Let me tell you, one of the ways we start off our general manager meetings is we always start off with what we call a positive focus. And everyone has to go around and have to say 3 things. That we have these meetings once every 4 weeks. So we're like, okay, name 3 things that's happened over that last period that's positive. And you can do all personal, you can do all business, you could do mix or match. It doesn't matter. But I've learned by them starting with the positives, because especially in this business, we're so much focus on what's wrong, and so much can change. As you said, you're kind of going in, you're expecting that punch. So when that punch comes, we can get so caught up in it that we forget to be positive about things and look for those positive things. Now, it doesn't mean, again, we should ignore all the negatives. I hear people say all the time, only look at positives. No, that's stupid. Because the problems don't go away on their own. They grow arms and legs and become bigger. But we can start with the positives. But the other thing on the journal piece that I think is really funny, I didn't mention this because I didn't think about it, but when my wife and I are fighting, or we're kind of bickering at each other, or she's just making me mad and I hadn't even told her yet, one of the things that I do is I write at the very beginning, I write a positive about her, and it has to be very specific. It's she cooked dinner for me last night, or she did this, she did this for my son. It was really amazing, and and I will, she talked to my daughter about something I didn't want to talk to my daughter about, whatever it happens to be. And what's amazing is after about 3 days of me writing something positive down about her, miraculously she changes. Well, it's not because she sees it or knows, it's because my attitude toward her changes. So instead of me getting
Ooh.
all like, can't believe she didn't say hi to me the other day, and kind of, and acting that way, by me starting focusing on those positive things, my attitude toward her changes, which either reflects, so either she does change because my attitude changed, or just my attitude changed and she never, and just the way I view it, my lens changes because I'm looking at it positively. And
Wow.
it's incredible. We were in such a terrible place in our marriage at about 9, 10 years in marriage. We had a marriage counselor tell us to get a divorce. And so literally, and
Wow.
we're married, this year we'll be married 22 years in a couple months. So
Congrats. That's awesome.
but it's incredible. If we had started looking at each other in that regard back then, we never would even have to go to counseling. It's incredible. But we all want to get so caught up in what's happening to me. All this is happening to me, and not like, wow, look at all the great stuff that's happening to me, and look
Yeah.
at all the great stuff with the people that are impacting my life.
Everyone wants to play the victim these days, and I'm so
Yeah.
sick of it. No, but really, my generation, especially, oh my God, millennials, just
We complain about you all the time, trust me.
hey, I'm one of them, and I can't stand it. I mean, it's like it drives me nuts. I'm ashamed of my generation in that regard. I'm like, guys, you have full control of your life. You don't need to rely on the government. You don't need to rely on anyone else, and stop complaining. You have an amazing life. Come on. But you said something here too, which was also really good. A lot of good fireballs today of knowledge. This is amazing. But you said something about it's like, look, you start focusing on all the things you're thankful for. End of the day, really, what you're saying is everything is pretty much internal. It's you create your own lens on the world of how you're going to see things.
Right.
There was this book I read recently. It's called The Diamond Cutter. It's really interesting, and it's a really random book I came across. It sounded interesting to me. It's basically about a guy who was like the third employee at a diamond business on the East Coast. I think it was in New York, and it talks about how they scaled to $100 million plus business, practicing really a lot of practices of the Buddha, and the big thing about it though is everything's internal, taking full responsibility for your life and your actions and where you're at. And recognizing that nothing that ever happens to us is really ever good or bad, but really how we perceive it. And it was so interesting.
Well, and there's a level of truth to that, but in reality is bad stuff does happen to us. I mean, again, those restaurants that you talked about that closed, bad stuff happened, but it's not necessarily like it's how we react to those bad things, and recognize that's just not necessarily where God wanted you at that moment. So it's not always just because we look at it as this is bad. I can give you an example. I was on the debate team. Was pretty good debater with my partner was amazing. So as a result, we did extremely well. And one year we were planning on getting really high up in the national circuit. We had an apartment fire and it killed everything. And at that time, that was the worst thing ever for me. I mean, we all that ended, but I could tell you, because of that, it got me kind of focused toward the end of school. I was able to kind of start kind of working on my career path and moving from there. I've had my heart broken before. Well, if I didn't have my heart broken, I never would have met my wife right now. So there's a lot of bad things that happen to us. But again, are we going to kind of sit back and whine and cry about it and say, woe is me? Or do we say, man, that sucks, let's move on to the next project? And I think that's where part of that difference is. And it's how we react to it is very important. Where I learned that that piece of kind of being thankful and not worrying was actually Jesus said, do not worry about tomorrow, for today has enough worries of its own. And he's like, look, God takes care of the birds, God takes care of flowers. So why are you worried? He's going to take care of you because he loves you a lot more than he loves a bird. And that was kind of like this eye opener to me of, oh, wow, I never really thought of that. So yeah, when life is falling apart, like, so when our restaurant was closing, literally we did everything we could do and nothing seemed to work. and we have, between the people that was in charge, hundreds of years of restaurant experience that couldn't turn this restaurant around. And when it was all failing and crashing, it was again, what do we do? And reality is you get up and you go to work.
Yeah.
And, and you look at the people that survived the Great Depression, my grandfather age, probably your great grandfather's ages, they survived that and had to work that. Yeah. They didn't have, gee, life is great, and I'm so happy to be me.
Absolutely.
But they didn't always just they didn't give up either. And that's the key, is what do you do? What's your next step? What is your next step after that? And sometimes sometimes getting out of bed is the next step. And then it's like, okay, now the next step is take a shower. Now the next step is go to work. Sometimes, and
one thing at a time.
Look at that big thing, as opposed to those little pieces at a time. I mean, that's huge.
100%. Yeah. I mean, what I say by it though is that yes, bad things do happen, but how do we turn them into good things, I guess. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like in our business, right? Like I had to let 6 people go in 2 weeks, good people that, I had to let go because we didn't have the clientele. We didn't have the funds. It just was awful. And that's not fun, right? That's not fun to let anyone go. It felt really awful. It felt, terrible. But the thing is though, by last November, I tell you, we had our best month ever. And so, hey, it was a really terrible time, but it forced us as a business to say, how can I turn this into a positive? This seems like the worst thing that could happen, but how can I just turn this into a positive? And we did. And so I think that's the thing I'm always looking for, is how can I turn this into some silver lining, right? How can I take full responsibility for this and turn it into something good? Because right now, maybe it doesn't look so good and so bright, but what can we do to move it towards that? I guess is really the goal that I always try to do. Right. But let's talk about some other things, maybe more restaurant focused. So obviously you guys have made it through. You guys are things in Tennessee, just so I'm clear, are pretty much back open 100% now at this point, or not?
No, there is the 100%, but you're supposed to have 6 foot distance from tables. Well,
okay.
So that's not 100%, but because when Fauci came out and said school's going to have 3 feet, we've kind of adapted that. Okay, it's 3 feet. And so I would say arguably we're about the 95% open internally. The biggest problem we have is getting labor, because obviously our cost of living here is tremendously lower than where it is where you live. Yeah. However, so when those stimulus checks come out, for people where you live, maybe just enough or not enough. For here in Tennessee, that's huge. That's a huge dollar. So they're like,
totally.
So I'm not coming to work because I'm getting more money than what I ever could possibly want.
That's tough.
Working. And so so getting people in to take care of the customers is one thing. And then the other area that's hitting us is manufacturing and shutdowns, like ketchup packets. I don't know if you saw the article or not, where ketchup packets are being sold on eBay because they're in such short supply right now.
No way.
Because carryout increased everywhere, and then these manufacturing plants get shut down because they get shut down for 2 weeks because someone had COVID and contact tracing, or you got to stay 6 feet apart from each other, so you're inefficient. And like gloves for us went up from $9 a case to $200 a case. So our sales could be, we could be at 110% sales, and our bottom line is nowhere going to be near that. To reflect that increase because of all these other things and chasing product, that you don't know. And again, you don't know what's going to be hit. Ketchup packets came out of the clear blue. I just was reading an article thinking it was funny that somebody was about the eBay, and I was like, who bought ketchup packets on eBay? And then I read the article and I'm like, uh-oh. Start getting the big cans of ketchup and pour them in little cups.
Yeah. Oh my God. That I never even thought about that. That's so interesting though. I mean, the shortage of everything. I mean, that's wow. Very interesting. What about for you in general? You said, as when you first became the CEO, you felt like you kind of a fraud in the beginning. Like, am I going to be a good leader? This and that. How have you progressed through that? I mean, how do you get better in general? Is it other specific books you read? Now you said you read the Bible pretty frequently. Any specific podcasts you listen to or leaders you looked up to in general to get better?
Well, yes and no. So I do listen to podcasts, I do listen to books on tape a lot. I do read, again, truthfully, in all honesty, the Bible I find has been the best business book I've ever found. It's amazing what I've read. And I'm like,
Yep.
I read something the other day and I was like, we need to work on something else here to help our employees get more money. I mean, it was just something there. I mean, it's been incredible how what I read, when I read it, just will answer a business problem. So that's a big piece of it. But I do listen to podcast interviews. I actually listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube when I drive. I listen to
Nice.
interviews with different people on YouTube. So those are those areas there. But the other thing is I talk to people. If I see a business person, I reach out and try to get a hold of them. You know what? I'm successful very rarely. Especially if they're really high up business people, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to find out, and I may, and I get lucky, I may get to have a 30-minute conversation with them,
Yeah.
so I do a lot of questions there. If I walk into a restaurant and it's well run, I'm going to talk to the general manager, not to recruit them, but I'm like, okay, what do you do? What are you doing here that makes your employees look this nice? How are
That's
you doing
awesome.
this? So even though technically, in the chain I'm higher than they are, but I want to steal ideas. I go to a Walgreens, and if that Walgreens is really clean, I go there. I've talked to the general manager of Nordstrom. I'm like, how, your customer service is amazing. Tell me how you're helping train your staff. And I get these ideas, and I call our training coordinator and like, okay, guess what? Look at what I learned the other day, and
That
and then we
is
kind of
no,
discuss it.
that is so cool though. Seriously. Like for anyone listening, hey, if you walk into another restaurant that's a lot cleaner than yours and the staff seems a lot better than yours, ask them what they're doing. That's no, but seriously, it seems so simple, but I don't think I've ever spoken to everyone who does that. I actually we do that in our business quite a bit. Like let's just say, I love like hiring business coaches to help me in a specific area that I
Right.
think I need help with. I think business coaching is huge. I'm all for it. I mean, I probably personally spent over 150 grand on business coaching in general, consulting, coaching, all that, because I get a huge value from it. But I think there's something to be said of a lot of people, like they're just resistant to it. They don't, I don't know. They just,
Pride.
they think it's stupid. I'm like, what do you mean? You went to school for this whole time. You spent 200 grand on your college education, but you won't spend $100 to talk to this guy for an hour, or even $1,000 to talk to this guy for an hour. It is worth it. It's crazy to me.
Well, and don't limit it to your own industry. So, for example, we're doing the programs that we saw that a football team has used to help people process better,
Mm,
and help them with a processing. And we're like, okay, we got people that definitely can use help here. And so we started kind of doing something along those lines. Or we have a manager who was amazing, but the problem was she was dyslexic. So for her, and she dropped out of high school. So
wow.
we got her a tutor to help her with her dyslexia. Now she's worked her way up quite well with us. So a lot of times, again, looking at what other industries are doing will really help as well, because sometimes, if I go to somebody and I say, hey, I'm in the restaurant and you're in the restaurant, they shut down. They don't want to talk. But if I go to a hotelier and I'm like, hey, I'm in the restaurant business, I want to kind of learn how you do customer service. So like any Hilton brand, they're going to be sitting there, they'll give you a whole tour. I mean, it's
Oh
it's
yeah.
so sometimes I just find, just by having those conversations, but a lot of it is pride. It's
Yeah,
just
you're right.
or I think I'm better than what I am. But if you're not working on a problem, then you got bigger problems than you realize.
100%. Something also that you just got to think about too. If you want to have a conversation with a general manager and you're going to pay them, of any restaurant for the matter that you think is doing a great job, and you offer to pay them 50, $60 for the hour of their time, hell, maybe even $100 for the hour of their time. Oh, that just made their week.
I'll be honest with you,
You
that's
know,
amazing, because I never really even thought of that, because most of the time, I just talk to them and they're just excited to share, because that's the thing. Everyone wants to be an expert. That's why there's so many podcasts out there, so many
you're
blogs
right.
out there. Everyone wants to be the expert.
You're right.
And so when you go to somebody and you're like, man, I think you've done an amazing job, tell me what you do, they're more than happy to share with you. Now my generation and the generation above mine, they weren't at all. but nowadays, I mean, it's exciting. And then you get to have a face-to-face with them too. So they get to be excited in their face and tell you, and you can look at them the whole time. And after they're done talking, you're like, that ain't going to work. That's just dumb. You know, then that's cool. You get to walk away just thinking that you're morally superior. That's all right. But at the end of the day, you made their day. That's the worst case scenario, is you made them feel good about themselves. The best case scenario is you get an amazing idea that can help you with whatever you're doing.
No, you're totally right. Maybe I shouldn't offer people $100 an hour for their time. Just kidding. No, you're absolutely right though, because you're right. People, and maybe this doesn't sound right when I say it, but people want to feel used. They want to feel like they provide value to someone. They want to be the expert, like you just said.
Right.
It is a good feeling to help someone. It is a good feeling to give and be needed, right?
Right.
I love that. What's one thing when you first started your career that you, let's just say you were to go back, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself early on when you started?
Oh boy, you know, well, I'll tell you, it's actually, I had to learn the hard way about allowing my emotions to get the best of me. You know, Bible actually says your heart is desperately wicked and deceitful among all things. You know, so sometimes how I feel isn't necessarily the way I ought to react to it. But one time, and my father gave me the advice. I was a younger manager, and someone came up and they interrupted me with something stupid that I had to fix. And I mean, it was just dumb. And I was focused on doing something probably like schedules or something like that. And I slammed my hand down on the table and I was like, okay, fine, I'll deal with it. My father walks by and he just looked at me very calmly and he said, you don't have that luxury. And that was it. And, you know, and it was that kind of that recognition. So then, even though I may have still been a hothead, I learned, okay, when you get angry, go in the freezer. You know, get yourself physically cooled off. No one can see you in there.
I like that.
You come out and you kind of work it. But reality is when everything's crashing, all you can do is one ticket at a time. And when you focus on one ticket at a time, you know, when things are going, when you're overwhelmed, one thing at a time, you knock it off, then you go to your next thing. And I mean, sometimes when that kitchen's crashing and the back in the day with wheels wrapped, now the screen's full, you know, and you're kind of going all that other stuff, I'll go back in that kitchen and I'll just tell everyone, stop. Everyone stop. We're going to work one thing at a time and we get out of that crash. But that's what we have to do. We have to work one ticket at a time, but that's true in life. And at that time, you know, I'm young. I have a lot more energy. I have a lot more endurance, and I'm you know, I think I'm smarter than everybody else. And so I could do it all, and that's just dumb. Just do one ticket at a time. And if you're lucky, you get to do two.
100%. No, you're totally right. You're totally right. This one thing at a time, you know, one foot after the other, just keep pushing forward. I love that. I love that. And just the last question for you. If you could step into my shoes, all right, what's one question you would have asked yourself today that I didn't ask?
Boy, I don't know, because again, I like having this kind of conversational thing. So I'll pat you on the back and say I can't really think of anything on it. But
awesome.
But yeah, no, I think this has been great because doing a podcast that's kind of rote and, you know, everyone does it, but the way you do it, the way you have that conversation, you know, you don't.
Cool.
The things that are left out may be left out, but they're left out on purpose because the conversation leads to where it goes. And so you don't need to ask, you know, those other questions that aren't part of that conversation.
Totally. Well, I mean, I'll tell you for myself, I've learned a lot today. I'm sure all our listeners have as well. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been really, really cool. I mean, it sounds like, you know, I think you are a fantastic business leader. I think what's so cool about you is it seems to me that you don't really have, you provide the same value to your personal life and to your business life. And you really seek to merge the two, which is fantastic. I think, hey, in all areas, right, in life and business, sometimes things shouldn't be mixed. But I think when you can mix them in a positive way, you absolutely should. I love that you provide your employees with values. I love that you want to help people. I love your perception on how you look at the restaurant space on helping people and being that helping hand. I think that's really cool. And so for any of our listeners who maybe want to check you out after this episode or interested in learning more about your restaurants, How do they find you? How do they connect with you online?
Yeah, so there's you can either go through my book website, which is afraidtotrust.com, and the contact us comes directly to me, or you can
Awesome.
go to we also do online, so we e-commerce, so you can buy, like, we ship our foods in multiple places. So it's demasfamilykitchen.com,
Perfect.
and there's ways you can contact me through that as well.
Awesome. And on afraidtotrust.com, you can order a book there. Is it through Amazon, or how do you
You
guys
can
do
order it
that?
through Amazon, or you can in either one of those spots, you can buy it, or you can buy it straight from there, and
Perfect.
or you can get it off Amazon. If you're Amazon Prime, I recommend that way more.
Okay. I mean, I'll probably get a copy after this episode.
All
I'm a
right, sounds
voracious
good.
reader, so I'll be right on it. Well, hey, again, Peter, thank you so much for your time today. This was amazing. And I'll look forward to checking out your book, and we'll be in touch real soon. Thanks a
All
lot.
right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You have a good
All
one.
righty.
We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.